The ruins of Varnus Prime shimmered under the pale light of its twin suns. Once it had been a proud colony world filled with marble towers and silver skies, home to thousands of alien families who believed the war would never reach them. But the galactic war had reached everywhere, and by the time peace came, Varnus Prime was a scarred wasteland of forgotten memories. A transport shuttle descended through the haze, its thrusters sending dust into a spiral storm. The insignia of the United Human Coalition was faint on its side, worn by years of battle and neglect. When the hatch opened, a group of soldiers stepped out, scanning the area with rifles slung across their armor. Among them was Captain Elias Ward, a veteran whose name carried quiet respect across human space. Elias had fought through the last decade of the war, from the siege of Euron Belt to the liberation of Edrin Outpost. His face bore the story of every campaign, scars not of pride but of survival. Now he was here, leading a recovery team sent to locate missing civilians and secure any surviving archives. He didn't expect to find anyone alive. But as they advanced through the broken streets, he caught movement among the ruins, quick, cautious, and silent. His hand went up in signal and the squad froze. Dust drifted down from the shattered buildings as the sound of small feet echoed faintly. "Show yourself," Elias said calmly, his voice echoing across the cracked stone. A figure emerged from the shadows, thin, trembling, covered in dust, but unmistakably alive. It was a young alien girl, one of the native Varnesians. Her skin glimmered faintly like blue glass beneath the sun, her eyes wide and cautious. She looked no older than 16, though her species aged differently. The soldiers lowered their weapons. Elias stepped forward slowly, removing his helmet so she could see his face. "It's all right," he said. "We're not here to hurt you." Her lips parted and a whisper escaped, hesitant, uncertain. "Human," he nodded. "Yes, we're here to help." The girl hesitated, then reached into a pouch tied around her arm. She pulled out a small metal pendant shaped like a bird in flight. Elias froze. He recognized it immediately. That pendant had belonged to him. He had given it away years ago. In the chaos of the war's darkest day, Elias had been part of an evacuation unit pulling civilians from a collapsing settlement under bombardment. Among them had been a terrified child, this same girl. Her parents had been killed and she'd clung to him, refusing to leave his side. To calm her, he had pressed his lucky pendant into her hand and told her to hold on to it until the war was over. He hadn't seen her since. Her voice broke the silence. "You saved me. Before." Elias felt the years collapse between them like shattered glass reforming. "You remember." "I remember everything." The soldiers watched silently as the two stood facing each other among the ruins of what had once been her home. They took her aboard the transport. The ship lifted from the ruined city, leaving the silence of the past behind. On board, the girl sat quietly, wrapped in a thermal blanket, staring out the viewport as the stars replaced the planet below. Elias sat across from her, studying the pendant she had returned to him. He hadn't realized how much it meant until he held it again. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then answered. "Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated. "You've grown," she nodded slightly. "I never forgot your face. You carried me through the fire when the sky fell." Elias said nothing. He remembered that day too well. The endless explosions, the screaming civilians, the moment he'd almost been buried alive trying to shield her. He had lost his entire unit in that evacuation. He looked at her again. She was thin, weary, but alive, and in that single fact he found something like peace. Over the next days, as the ship crossed the stars toward the central command station, Lyra began to talk. She told him of hiding in the ruins with others, of watching the last Varnesian resistance fall, of scavenging from wrecks to survive. For years she'd waited for a rescue that never came. When the signals stopped, she thought everyone had forgotten her world. "I thought the humans had left," she said quietly one evening. "That you'd won the war and didn't care what was left behind?" Elias shook his head. "No one won. We just stopped losing." She looked at him with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of sorrow. "Then why come back now?" He stared at the stars before replying. "Because some debts don't fade, and some promises need to be kept." When they reached the command station, the brass wanted reports, not stories. Varnus Prime was declared a closed sector, uninhabitable. Lyra was registered as a war survivor, pending transfer to a rehabilitation center. Paperwork, procedures, endless forms, the usual aftermath of a galactic war. But Elias couldn't walk away. When the medics tried to separate them, Lyra refused. "I go with him," she said firmly. Her voice didn't tremble. The officers hesitated, recognizing the veteran she pointed to. Elias met their eyes and said, "She's under my protection." They let it pass. Weeks became months. Lyra adapted to life aboard human stations, learning their language fluently, studying their technology with a curiosity that impressed even the engineers. Her species had been known for their affinity with energy harmonics, and she used that instinct to assist in ship repairs, tuning systems by instinct. Elias found himself quietly proud of her resilience. She had gone from a frightened survivor to a capable crew member, still haunted but never broken. He trained her in discipline, tactics, and the lessons of survival beyond war. She called him captain even off duty, though she smiled when she said it. Once, during a maintenance shift aboard the patrol ship Resolute, she stood beside him watching the stars through the glass dome of the observation deck. "Do you ever regret saving me?" she asked suddenly. Elias turned to her. "Never. You lost your unit that day," she said. "You could have escaped if you hadn't gone back for me." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I've seen too much death to measure life in what I lost. Saving you reminded me what we were fighting for." She lowered her gaze. "Then I'll make sure it wasn't for nothing." Years passed. The galaxy healed slowly and painfully. Trade routes reopened. Old enemies became reluctant allies. But the scars of war remained in every world and every veteran who had lived through it. Lyra grew into her own strength. She joined the Human Coalition's Exploration Corps, serving as an intercultural liaison between frontier worlds. Her insight bridged the gaps between species still hesitant to trust one another. The once lost girl became a symbol of what survival could mean when compassion triumphed over conquest. Elias, now nearing retirement, kept command of the Resolute until his final mission, an escort operation along the border of the neutral expanse. When the last report was filed and the ship returned home, he quietly resigned. He didn't expect to see her again, but fate rarely ends where one expects. On a quiet morning at the spaceport of New Horizons Station, a figure approached him as he prepared to depart for a remote colony. She wore a dark uniform lined with silver, the insignia of the Exploration Corps on her shoulder. Her eyes glowed faintly with that same crystalline hue he remembered from years ago. "Captain Ward," she said with a smile that bridged a decade. Elias looked up, and for a moment, he didn't recognize her. Then memory clicked and his expression softened. "Lyra," she saluted formally. "Permission to come aboard?" He chuckled. "You don't need permission anymore." They walked together through the hangar, speaking of old times and new worlds. She told him of the frontier colonies that had begun working together, human and alien alike, building something beyond what the war had destroyed. He listened, quietly proud. As they reached the shuttle, she handed him something small, a pendant shaped like a bird. "You gave this to me once," she said. "Now I'm giving it back so you'll remember that even in the worst fires, life can still be saved." He closed his fingers around it. "You already reminded me." When the announcement sounded for boarding, she turned to go. But then she hesitated. "Captain," she said softly, "do you ever think about what might have happened if you hadn't found me?" He looked out the viewport toward the endless stars. "I'd have lost more than my unit that day." She smiled, understanding. He watched as she disappeared into the crowd of travelers and officers, a living testament to what the war hadn't destroyed. Later, as his shuttle rose from the station and the stars stretched into streaks of light, Elias took out the pendant and placed it around his neck once more. The metal was cool, but it carried warmth in its memory. He closed his eyes. The sound of explosions, the screams, the desperate cries of a dying world, all faded into silence. In their place remained a single voice, soft and steady, calling from the ruins of the past. "You saved me." He smiled faintly, whispering into the quiet of space. "No, Lyra, you saved me too." Outside, the stars burned brighter than ever, and for the first time in many years, the old soldier felt something like peace, because in the end, the galaxy didn't remember the wars or the empires. It remembered the moments of mercy that had kept hope alive. And among those stars, the story of a human soldier and the alien girl he had once rescued continued to echo, not as a tale of conquest, but as proof that even across the vast darkness, humanity's greatest power had never been its weapons or ships. It had always been its heart.